Good evening. It is Monday, May 12th. It is 6 p.m. in Council Chambers. This is the Law and Ordinance Committee. I am Chairman Jeffrey Whitten. I am joined tonight by Mrs. Marshall. Mr. Twist is unable to join us tonight. We have one item on our agenda tonight. It is a rezoning of Parcel D08 105472, located on Commerce Center Boulevard. It's a rezoning request from R2 single-family residential to to M2 light industrial. And from what I understand, Mr. Davis, you'll be giving a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you. So the request in front of you is an application from Craig Sweeney, who's actually here. He's representing Comeo of America. It's a request to consider the rezoning of 191 Commerce Center Drive. It currently has 3 different zoning districts on it. It has R4 single-family residential, OC1 office commercial district, and the M2 light industrial district. The request is to consolidate those zoning districts down to one. So it'll be one parcel with one zoning district of the M2 light industrial district. Currently, the land is vacant. It has no use on it right now. It is a farm field currently. And the surrounding zoning districts consist of M2, a light industrial district to the north and east, and you have OC1 office commercial district to the south, along with county zoning of R1 AAA, which is single family. It's important to note, again, that the property has multiple zoning districts on it, and the request is in front of you to eliminate the multiple zoning districts on a single lot. And I do believe you have a map in your packet.
Yeah.
The Planning Commission heard this request earlier, and they recommended a positive recommendation to the Council Committee with the 3 reasons. 1 being it's consistent with the intent and purposes of the City of Troy zoning code. 2, it's consistent with the surrounding zoning districts. And 3, it is consistent with the City of Troy comprehensive plan. So as you know, we held a public hearing last week, and I wanted to take some time to address some of the concerns I heard at the public hearing. First off, there were 8 people who spoke against the rezoning, with 2 of those being Troy residents and 6 of them living outside the city limits. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and as you know, the city spent a lot of time with our comprehensive plan. We started it in 2023. We held multiple meetings for the public. We spent a lot of time talking about future land use and how the city should grow. And with that, it was adopted in the fall of last year. And so the intent and purpose of the comprehensive plan is to provide us guidance for items such as this, where you have zoning coming into place and how property should be used. So this would be consistent with that plan that was recently adopted. Also, I wanted to clarify that this is a straight rezoning application. This is not a request for a variance. I know there was talk at the public hearing about some variance items. That is not into play here today. I just wanted to clear the air there. That is strictly a rezoning application in front of you. Also, there is no development application that has been submitted to the city at this time. Again, it's strictly a rezoning application for the use of land. So only the consolidation of zoning from one lot with multiple zonings to a single lot with a single zoning designation is being considered here today. And so some of the concerns I heard, a lot of them were regarding development items such as stormwater, noise, lighting, traffic, and those other concerns. So I wanted to address each of these items since I have the mic. So stormwater, should a development plan be submitted, and if it disturbs over an acre of land, then they're required to provide on-site stormwater retainage. So whether that's a retention pond or detention pond will be determined with the application itself once that's received. The Ohio Revised Code prohibits a site from discharging more stormwater pre-development than post-development. So essentially they cannot push runoff onto other properties. They have to collect it and control it on their site. 2, noise was brought up as a concern. So the city does have noise standards in their zoning code. So right now, the standard is 60 decibels could not be exceeded at the property line. We do have a noise meter that we go out, a decibel meter that we go out and we utilize on the property lines, and it will give us a reading and to see if it falls within those criteria. If not, adjustments will have to be made to make sure it does. This is true everywhere throughout the city, not just in this area, but it's citywide. 3, lighting. It was mentioned about lighting and having too much lighting on property. So when an application is submitted, the city will require a photometric plan. That photometric plan determines the foot candles that will be at the property, right? So we have a light meter that we will go out, we read it at the property lines to make sure that it is compliant with our zoning code. So again, that's citywide, not just for this area. So we will be addressing that as well. One of the items that came up was screening. That was kind of a big point of topic. So our zoning code does require screening when you have properties that adjoin, whether it's residential to industrial or vice versa. So we have spoken with Craig Sweeney, again, who represents Comio, and he's in the audience if you have questions for him as well today. But I think they wish to be very good neighbors. We talked about screening requirements. Of course, they will meet our requirements. They will be forced to with their plan. Our requirement, we require trees, dense shrubbery, hedges, things of that nature will be required in that buffer district. I wouldn't be surprised if Comio kind of exceeds those requirements. A lot of our companies will do that if we request it. They'll add more landscaping in, especially to appease neighbors. So that will be addressed. And lastly, traffic. We heard a lot of questions about traffic, where they're going, where traffic will come in at. So doing some research, it looks like through an enterprise zone agreement, we actually had one with Honda and Comio. The one with Honda was started and signed in 2005, and Comio had an enterprise zone agreement in 2008. So in those agreements, it stated that they required truck traffic to take the north route, which was defined as the 41 exit versus coming southbound. So it wouldn't go to McKaig Avenue, it would go north to Experiment Farm Road or Sandfield Road, and either all the way through Experiment Farm Road on 25A, depending on the size of the truck, or shoot down West Main Street to the 41 exit. So we would be requesting that that be followed today. It is important to note that those agreements no longer are in existence. Both of them have expired. But again, we have talked to the representatives of Comio, and they have stated that they are willing to put up signage to point trucks to the north, and if needed, sign a MOU or a memorandum of understanding with the city to help reinforce this item. So those are items I wanted to address. There's a couple of other additional key information I did want to talk about that we have learned that we can share. One, Comio will run one shift from 7:30 to 4 p.m., so that will alleviate a lot of the noise after 4 p.m. Two, trailers will be received at the north end of the property. As you know, they're residential homes. A lot of the people that were speaking here at the public meeting, they live to the south of the property, so having the trailers and the dock doors at the north end will reduce some of the noise concerns. Two, traffic, it will actually be reduced with this development. So right now, Comio has a place inside of Honda, and once they kind of exceed their capacity, which they have grown, they actually lease a warehouse in Vandalia. They take a lot of shipments from the Honda location to their other warehouse in Vandalia. If they build this building in Troy, the new facility, it would eliminate the need to ship those items to Vandalia and keep them right here in Troy. So the truck traffic would actually be reduced with this development as opposed to increased. And lastly, just to be 100% transparent, this development can still occur if the rezoning does not go through. So I wanted to point that out there. I know that was not brought up, but I wanted to make that very clear to everybody. And as stated, the city continues to try to reduce the properties that have multiple zoning districts on them. So we have been doing this for quite some time now, and we'll continue to do that in the future. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Davis. That did answer many of the questions that I had that came from last Monday's meeting that citizens brought up. I guess I would say if we can reserve you for now, because that answers my questions, we might go a little bit out of order here and let citizens kind of go first if they have any comments they want to bring up that maybe reiterate or talk over that Mr. Davis brought up. So I'll first, if that's all right with you, Mr.
No, that's perfectly fine.
I'll open it up to citizens' comments if we want to start there.
Good evening, committee. My name's Jenny Bolton. I'm from 85 Norbert Drive in Troy.
Bill Bolton, same address.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, first of all, for presenting that. That was some helpful information to answer some of our questions and concerns, but I still do have a couple of concerns regarding, just to mention before I forget, because it's not something I have written down, he had mentioned the trucks coming in on the north side of the building and all the properties are on the south. The parking for these trailers, though, is along the east side of all of our properties, which is south of the building that's being proposed. So in order to get those trucks back to the parking area, or the trailers back to the parking, they will need to be behind the building, south of the building, and surrounding our properties. So that still is kind of a noise issue for us. Thankfully, it hopefully will be during the day, but it is still a concern for noise. So I do appreciate that clarification from him. One thing that I wanted to address, I'm not going to read through the entire presentation that I read last week because I think Mr. Davis answered and clarified a lot of those concerns. But one of the pieces I would like to reiterate is that the purpose of, again, referencing the City of Troy Zoning Code, Section 1131.02, Purpose and Intent, in line F, it says to create physical buffers between zones where generally beneficial and within zones where tensions or conflicts may occur between dissimilar land uses. What we're fighting for, I'm not fighting to say that they cannot build on their property. I understand this building is probably going to take place no matter what happens with the rezoning. We want to, honestly, as residents there, we want to maximize the buffer between us because the impact that it's going to have on our property, the value of our property, having a manufacturing building literally within feet of our property is very concerning with regards to the value of our property. The light issue, I understand the regulations of the zoning, but I know, when you're standing in a parking lot, you see the light, it's there, even though they're guiding the lights down, and I understand they're following all those zoning codes and requirements. The light, we're going to be able to see the light in our yard. It's just, the bottom line is, it's going to be there. It's going to affect the animals we have in our yard. We raise chickens and goats and turkeys and ducks in our yard. We have over 100 animals on a small pasture in our yard, and those lighting, the lighting that's coming from that area will affect their sleep cycles. It will affect their reproductive cycles, and it could negatively impact their ability to produce food for us. So that is a huge concern that we have. We also contacted Amy Wilt, who is a realtor in the area. I'd be happy to provide this letter to you. I'm just going to read to you guys what it says. She says, to whom it may concern, I am writing to express my concern regarding the possibility of a plan to expand a large industrial factory close in proximity to our residential community. As a local real estate agent for more than 25 years, I am deeply troubled by the likely negative impact this will have on local property values and the overall quality of life for residents. Numerous studies have shown that the presence of large industrial facilities can significantly lower home values in surrounding areas. Factors such as increased noise, pollution, traffic, and environmental risks are not only disruptive to daily life, but also deter potential home buyers, leading to a decrease in demand and ultimately home equity loss for current residents. This is shown to be true in Vandalia, where Chewy's, Amazon, Procter & Gamble, etc. have moved into the area and residents have vacated and homes are selling for decreased values. Many of my clients and myself have invested heavily, financially and emotionally, in our homes and neighborhoods. We chose this area for its peace, safety, and sense of community. The prospect of living near a major industrial site threatens to diminish those very qualities. Furthermore, the loss in property value can have long-term financial consequences for families who may depend on home equity for retirement, education, or future investments. I urge local officials, planning commissions, and developers to carefully weigh the long-term implications of these developments on residential areas. Transparent discussions with community members and consideration of alternative locations further from established neighborhoods would go a long way toward balancing growth with the preservation of property values and community well-being. Thank you for your time and consideration of this important matter. Sincerely, Amy Wilt, Realtor with Keller Williams Home Realty. So that just kind of mentions and backs up our concern with the value of our property. I can tell you that if that property or if that building was existing when we looked at our property 5 years ago to buy it, I would not have purchased that home, flat out. I just would not buy a home that close to a manufacturer. We're there. We've established a beautiful home. We've done major, hundreds of thousands of dollars of renovations and adding on to this property, and I don't want to move. I don't want to be forced away. I love our home. I love the city of Troy, even though we are in the township, and I'm respectfully asking you guys to please consider us and our concerns moving forward with this recommendation. We believe that the building that they're proposing can still be achieved on the property that they have available to them. We have a little, can we approach you guys and hand out a little map drawing here? We have a...
Just so right over there.
Okay. If you just give them all to her.
Yes, thank you.
There is some proposed land to the north side of the land that Comio is proposing to build on right now that is owned by Honda. They are part of the same entity. A land transaction can occur and these buildings can still be put in place while still respecting a land buffer and leaving the R4 zone in place to provide us maximum buffering between the zones. So really that's the bottom line of our argument. I don't think I need to reiterate everything else that Mr. Davis has already addressed. Did you want to say anything else?
Yeah, so with the proposed building and everything else that's on the map there, I understand, like Mr. Davis was saying, it's not the end-all, say-all and everything, but for the application, you have to have that in there. So that's why we are assuming that it'll look something similar to this. In the code, it asks for measurements and everything. Those are not on there, so we don't know what that's actually going to look like if the R4 is switched over to the, or amended to the M2. So you know, looking at that, this is our picture of what this is going to look like. I understand that there will be a final plan approved and all that kind of stuff, but from right now, this is what we're looking at and this is what we're dealing with. Again, the natural buffer with that R4 zone was built in there for some reason. It was the M2, then the R4 along the residential areas before 2008 when Comio purchased the land, the property. So.
Do you want me to give them that? I'm going to give you guys, this is the letter from the realtor.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Any of your questions? That's all we have.
Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. What is in your head, what are you envisioning as the maximum buffer zone?
So right now, according to the zoning, from the property line, there has to be 25 feet according to the zoning considerations. So if they leave that R4 zone there, that would maximize that 25-foot line, because then they're going to have to go 25 feet from that R4 zone, is my understanding. So then we would have the R4 zone as just a natural buffer of land, plus the 25 feet that they would have to go in. So that would that would just maximize the amount of space. To me, just moving the building a little bit further north, not so close to our property line, because our home does sit closer to the north side of the property line. It just, again, I know the building's going to be there, but the further away we can push this building onto that property, to me, is beneficial for everybody in the neighborhood. It just kind of creates a natural space between us, then minimizing a lot of the light issues more than anything. I don't think the noise is going to change much by the...
Right. I'm just trying to envision a number in my head. What
I've seen and what I'm estimating, it's between 50 to 60 feet.
Total
Yeah.
For the width of the R4.
zone.
Okay.
From the north part of our property to the south part of the
M2.
Okay.
It's roughly 50 to 60 feet.
Yeah, and we're just guesstimating that because there's not been an actual number given to us of how big that actual zone is. We can only see the yellow strip on the map.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all. Does that answer your question, I hope?
Not entirely.
Okay.
I'm trying to get a picture, though, or a feel from property line
Yeah.
of your property in Comeo's
Mhm.
to what you envision the building being away is.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
what we would like?
and
I mean, which would include that
So
buffer
at
or
minimum,
whatever,
the 50 to 60 plus 25 feet.
so 80, 90 feet call it, basic, I mean, just around.
Yeah, if, estimate, yeah.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
Would that much really make a difference in the lighting for you guys?
I feel,
I'm
based
not
on,
sure, I don't know.
yeah, I understand. Based on the drawing, and I know that this was just a rough sketch that was given to us, it appears that the building is going to be the bulk of the land usage that they're proposing here. So there's not going to be this huge parking lot between our property and the building that would create some sort of buffer between the lights emanating off of the side of the building for security purposes, and things like that. It appears that that building is going to be pretty close with maybe some driving space for vehicles to get behind it. From the sketch, it appears it's going to be very close to the property line. And that's my concern. It's just,
So you'll, yeah,
it's
you'll
gonna
have
be
the
as
security
close
lights on the building, you'll have lights,
in the parking
imagine
lot.
down the driveway, in the parking lot, and all that. And that's just for security for Cameo, which I agree with and everything, but it'll still be, you know,
Affecting our
our area.
I guess that, and I know none of these plans are finalized
Right.
here, but with the consideration of maybe pushing the building farther south, obviously trucks need quite a bit of room to turn
Yeah.
around and to park. That's why they want to push that south to give that room those trucks would need to put those docks in. Again, these plans are not finalized.
Exactly.
Right.
But that's why they might be going with that approach. I'm just concerned.
Yeah, so on the map, the red box is where the sketch is at. The blue box is what, if they move the whole building north, which is Honda's property, but Honda and Cameo is a subsidiary of Honda, it would not be that big of a deal for them to lease or, you know, make the exchange of property for Cameo to move that property or the building north
I see.
to accommodate the dock and all that kind of stuff.
I think that's outside the scope of this meeting,
Sure, yeah, sure.
to broach that with them, but.
Sure.
Okay. Any other comments, or you can reserve your time, I suppose, and come back?
Just besides I guess more of a question for you. So in the code, it says 25 feet is the buffer. So at that 26, or coming off of my property, 25 feet, so that 25 plus 1 inch, is that where the construction would technically start? Because in the sketch, if you have the buffer zone, they're making the R4 zone, essentially the storm drain, storm water catch basin, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
So what can be within that 25 feet? Or does it have to be the 25 feet plus, you know, is the new construction of whatever it is, the basin or whatever, is that where that starts?
Sure. I might ask Mr. Davis if he could provide an answer for that question.
Yeah, so one of the items, and again, we're getting into discussions about development that we don't have an application, so it's hard to come out for me to say it. But we do have, we have a utility easement here along the property line anyway that they couldn't build over. They could do the retention area, and I think when they do the retention area, I don't want to speak to it, but it sounds like they will meet or be close to the number you're talking about, having the building pushed there. So you'll have a good buffer here in between. One, we have that easement. Two, they have to provide storm water. If they put that here, if they do a mound of some sort, that will probably protect you from the lighting that you're talking about. So it may be a moot point what we're talking about, what's going to be proposed. It's just I can't guarantee it because we don't have that.
Yeah, just in general though, like this area right here is that 25 feet. So if that's my property line, and then is that 25 feet between here and where the
Well, I don't know
that
because
starts?
we don't. Once we get detailed plans, we would know. And then
But
I
just
would
in general, I mean,
I would
where
probably turn
would
this.
the actual construction actually start?
I'd probably turn this over to Craig Sweeney, who's a representative of Comeo, because he's going to be the one to give you more information. I can only guess and say this is what the city could require.
Sure.
So.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Bolton. Mr. Sweeney, I guess that's your cue.
no, I'm not gonna crack any jokes this time. Craig Sweeney, 940 Rosewood Creek Drive, Troy, Ohio. I think what you're asking, you correct me if I'm wrong, is what does this current zoning code say as far as the footage requirement, right? Is it 25 feet from the current zone, or is it 25 feet from the property line?
Mr. Sweeney, if
Oh,
you
sorry.
are speaking
I
into
just
the
want to make sure I'm
microphone.
answering the right
Yeah, but
question, right? Sorry.
It can't be heard if you're not on the mic.
So, the way the zoning code is written, it's when adjoining lots are R1 through R7, the buffer zone needs to be 25 feet. It's unclear whether that's 25 feet from the property line or 25 feet where the current zoning code, where the current zoning demarcation is, right? So when you have a lot that has an M2 zoning and an R4 zoning on the same lot, is it 25 feet from the line where the adjoining properties are, or is it 25 feet from where that R4 ends, right? That's part of the reason we want to file for the rezoning, right? To make sure we've got an M2 on the entire thing so we know for certain what the city of Troy requires as far as those offsets. And again, the sort of big overarching theme here tonight is, yes, this is just a preliminary plan. They have to submit one when they submit for rezoning. This is all still going to be subject to this body's approval on once construction actually starts. What's the screening look like? What is the actual setback that we're doing? What are these retention areas going to look like? It's all got to be in concert with the City of Troy approvals, Ohio EPA, ODNR, and every water retention governing body in the state. We're going to have to abide by, right? I mean, that's where it is. Now, to kind of supplement and piggyback off what Mr. Davis was saying, Comio's position is, number one, the big three, right? It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The majority is already zoned M2 and can be utilized as such. Comio isn't trying to come in and take this R4 strip and build on it in contravention of what we can already do, right? We're still going to have to be subject to the City of Troy's regulations and everything else. Even if we just use the M2 site, we're still going to have to do the screening and everything that the City of Troy requires. We just want to be able to use this buffer area as part of the retention area so we can maximize the space that we have. So a couple sort of issues, like I said, that came out of the last meeting. I did approach my client about, Mr. Whidden, your question about hours. It is 7:30 to 4 p.m., one shift work is the preliminary plan. Again, that's subject to change, but only with the approval of the City of Troy, right? So to kind of go through, the current R4 areas are planned for just that retention area and green space, screening and everything else that will go into that. As Mr. Davis said, all trailer activity will take place on the north side. To kind of expand on what he's saying, at least 15 trucks a day is what my client tells me goes from the Honda facility to the Comio Logistics site in Vandalia, okay? Instead, we're going to have a shared lot between the Honda facility and the Comio facility, so where the majority of the movement is going to happen between these two buildings now. And then obviously things are going to have to be shipped out, but you're talking about larger loads, fewer trucks, okay? And less often, because once you have to have a full load in order to ship it out from the logistics company. They did say that they would train, put up signage and everything to encourage people to go north on Commerce Boulevard and use State Route 41. Like I said, just the big points is they're still going to be subject to the City of Troy's zoning requirements once they build this physical facility. But we have a chicken and the egg problem, right? Is we can't develop our plans until we know what we're dealing with on the setback requirements and everything else on how this property's zoned. We're trying to get one M2 site so we have some certainty, can invest in Choice 1 engineering to come in and actually do plans that we will share with this board and therefore the public. Like I said, so there is, to answer the question that was presented when I first came up, there is some discrepancy on what that 25-foot buffer is, right? Is it 25 feet from the R4, or is it 25 feet from the adjoining lots that are R4, as the code says? Our position is we don't really care. We're going to build it however far away from the property line you tell us, right? I mean, we can't go against what the City of Troy says in approving that master build plan when we're next to the residents. We do want to partner with the residents and make sure we're good neighbors. While we can't put anything in writing at this point because we don't have plans, they were open to a berm and screening in some of the conversations that I had with some of the residents afterwards to limit the amount of disruption. So with that, I'm open to any questions you might have.
You addressed most of the questions I had. Mrs. Marshall, do you?
No, that Tim answered what I wanted to know.
Do any other council members in the audience have any questions for Mr. Sweeney? Mrs. Westfall, please come forward.
Well, my questions concern you. So, you said you're going to be open 7:30 to 4. Is Honda open 7:30 to 4? Does anybody know? Because, I mean, they'll be producing. Do you see it staying 7:30 to 4? I don't.
I can only share what my contact with Congress said. I mean, they aren't necessarily a 24/7 logistics company out of Vandalia because they can only ship when they're coming in, right? So he envisions it as a 7:30 to 4 set.
Right. Okay. Well, that was one of my concerns is I don't see it staying that way. And just because you have signs pointing trucks a certain way doesn't mean they'll go that way. So that's going to be a concern. And I personally don't know anybody that would want a big industrial building right next to their house. I don't know anybody. But as they said last week, that maybe a tall berm would help, and that would go a long way with the lighting, with their animals and so forth. But I do have concerns. I wouldn't want to live by you, especially if I bought this knowing that there was a buffer zone. I absolutely would not have invested in my property like neighbors have. So that's what I wanted to say.
I get that. Just want to reiterate, the important thing is that same buffer zone under the current plans, the client plans to keep, okay? And again, along with the City of Troy specifications, they can already build this facility on what's already zoned M2, subject to the city's approval on the building permits. So as far as the lighting and the distractions, you're going to have the same issues regardless of whether this is rezoned or not. So the plan is to use this R4, like I said, as green space, stormwater retention, and screening. So, thank you.
Mr. Sweeney. Do any other members of the audience have any questions? Mr. Bolton.
I have a question, or Bill Bolton, 85 Norbert. It's not a question, but more of a comment. So you asked if the 90 feet is what we came up with. Was that a big deal with the light and everything? Maybe, we'll see. But what I want to say more about is it a big deal? I think it's affecting more of our property value. I think that's the biggest deal in all of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Kind of go back to the beginning now. Is there any council members that have any questions that have been left unanswered? Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis, do you have any idea what the dimensions are on the R4 zoning area is from the north property line on Norbert's north? Do you know how wide that section is?
I think Austin will look it up. While he's doing that in the meantime, regarding the property value, I wanted to point out, I guess, two things. One, they compared us to the city of Vandalia, which I don't think is apples to apples. I don't know what their zoning code states and the requirements they have. Two, we do have examples of where residential exist right next to industrial. We have High Street, and I think if you look at those properties, the property values have continued to increase and not decrease, as stated in the letter. But to answer the specific question,
it's 150 deep. And then it's
Austin, will you just introduce yourself real quick?
Austin, I'm our planning and zoning manager, City of Troy.
It's 150 feet wide.
Yeah, from those residential
Gotcha.
lots
All right, very
north.
good. Thank you.
Do any other council members have any questions?
Well, I just have a comment. When I asked you if that was a big deal, I didn't mean if it was a big deal. I wondered if it would make a difference in the animals, like if 25 feet was really a deal breaker, like how really would that affect? I didn't mean for that to say, oh, is that a big deal? I just meant, is it, would it make a difference? How big of a difference would that extra 25 make for your animals?
And I'm not taking any derogatory way or anything. We're trying to find out all the facts and everything too. But I think, like, if you look at, like, Myers parking lot, I mean, the lighting in that area, I mean, it expands further than their parking lot itself. So I'm using that as a frame of reference. So yes, it would bleed over into our property.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So, with what we have on the agenda tonight, I am not unsympathetic to the concerns of the citizens here, and many of them are valid in my opinion, and I agree with Mrs. Westfall. I don't think anyone would necessarily want to have an industrial building built behind their property, but the issue before us is rezoning this parcel from R4 to M2, and in my opinion, this is in line and an acceptable change to that classification. Now, I would wait to make a final decision on the plans, which will come forward at a different time before we make any final decisions, but for this request, and because of that, I think this is an acceptable change for the rezoning at this time. So, I would be...
Just as a point of clarification, the plans will not come before the council to approve. They would go through the staff level.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So at this time, I would be willing to approve that and move this forward to council. Mrs. Marshall, do you have a recommendation?
I agree with you being sympathetic. I would not want that either, but based on what it's asking for, fair, I guess.
So I do have one comment with that. So why was it made a R4 zone in the first place?
I do not have that, so we can call on...
I would only assume that it's to create that buffer zone for the residents that were in that area when they bought that parcel of land.
I do not have an answer for that, Mr. Bolton. I apologize. I do not know the history of those parcels.
So maybe we should look into the history of why that was established as an R4 zone before we make an assumption or a determination of switching it over to M2.
Could this come back to us?
It will, well, with our vote now, it will go to council, and we could take it will go to the full council for their review at this point. That's what I would say. This is not finalized at this opinion. It will be going to council on Monday for final council approval of the whole.
Roger. All right, thanks.
Is there any other items to come before the Law and Ordinance Committee?
No, sir.
We stand adjourned.